Good morning. It is Sunday, the 4th of June, 2023, and today will be the final day in final preparations for wing sealing and assembly and all that business. Two things that need to be done today. The first is I realized that this morning I was rewatching Van's video on building the fuel tanks. I'll put that video in the description. This cradle has been very useful to me up to this point. However, there's no way that I will be able to get a rivet gun in here for these first 3 or 4 rivet holes on both sides. So I'm going to modify this to make it actually useful for building the fuel tanks. And then we'll go ahead and do the scuffling, cleaning, and dimpling of all of the skins and ribs. That'll be today. Tomorrow is the beginning of assembly and sealing week. And here's how I think that it's going to go. So I'm going to put it out here right now, and then together we'll all see how it actually plays out. Tomorrow will be day 1 on a Monday, which is convenient. And that will be all of the skin stiffeners. I think that splitting it up into 2 work sessions during the day, I should be able to back rivet on the stiffeners on both fuel tanks. Day 2 on Tuesday, I will begin on the interior ribs. Each fuel tank has 5 interior ribs. I think that on Tuesday, I'll do all of 1 fuel tank. On Wednesday, day 3, I'll do all of the other fuel tank, the 5 interior ribs. Thursday, day 4, I think that I can get all 4 of the end ribs finished up, and then on day 5, Friday, will be the baffles closing out. I think that I should be able to get all of that done in a single day. These will probably be very long days, and I'm concerned about the work time of the Pro Seal, the tank sealant, especially in the hot environment that I live in. So, but I put a lot of thought into this. I think that that is not an unreasonable expectation for the week. Let's see how it goes. So enough of that. This has been a pretty long intro. Let's just get into today's work, the final day of final prep for the wings. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. I'll see you on the other side.
First up, I need to modify this cradle, and I don't want to use a freaking jigsaw because I hate that thing. So I worked out a way that I could reuse the current cradle by adding a little bit of material in the bottom, and well, you'll see how it turned out. But the fact is that it did turn out. It doesn't, I mean, it needs to get sturdy enough to get through this job. Before it was rock solid. Now it's just sturdy, but it's certainly adequate for what we're doing here. And then those little clamps right there, I'll show you a picture. It's a trick I picked up from Ryan Flies, kind of like little kickstands. There you go. So that works pretty well. But yeah, this little project only took about 20-30 minutes to get that done. Then we get into final prepping the ribs, and I think I've got a stand-up coming up here that will explain a little bit more about what I'm doing with these guys.
Hey, I'm going to interrupt my rib prep here to kind of explain some of what you're seeing right now, because I think that this is important for anybody who's not to this step yet. Not all of these rivet holes are in the rib when you start. When you fit it to the skin, this rivet hole right here, so this hole exists, this hole exists. This one is not in the rivet, or rather it's not in the rib flange, but it is on the skin. So you match drill it using the skin as a guide. When I was fluting these things a couple weeks ago, I suppose, when I was doing the marathon prep session, when I was fluting these things, I fluted, you can see right here, I fluted this spot just past this rivet hole. This was an empty tab, there wasn't a hole there. Had I known at the time that I was going to end up drilling a hole right there, I wouldn't have done any fluting past this hole in this big empty space right here, because the chance that the flute ends up right very close to the rivet hole, which it kind of is. So when you see me grabbing these hand seamers, and this is sort of another tip, when you see me grabbing these hand seamers, I'm using the hand seamer to flatten out that flute to make sure that I'm not keeping this rivet hole from sitting flush against the skin. The reason I say that this is a good tip is when you're fluting your ribs and you overdo it a little bit, a hand seamer is a great tool to be able to span over 1, 2, or 3 flutes at the same time and give it a squeeze, and it will relax them or flatten them out a little bit. So it's a good tool for fine-tuning the fluting. Anyways, that's what I wanted to explain about that. What I've been doing is, because this is my last opportunity to work with these things before I get them all slopped up with sealant, is I have been going through and doing one last check of the flange bends. That's what you saw me doing with the square. Just making sure that the flanges are all 90 degrees, doing a little bit of fine tuning, and then deburring. And you might have noticed that I've been deburring the inside of all of these holes, and you probably noticed that I haven't been deburring the outside of these rivet holes in the flange. The reason for that is, in a few minutes, I'm going to be hitting all of these surfaces aggressively with a Scotch-Brite pad, so that will effectively deburr it for me. There are almost no burrs on these edges here. When you final size drill these holes with a reamer, the reamer leaves a nice clean hole. So it's really just sort of a check to get that done. So that's what's going on. But again, if you're not at this stage yet, and this, by the way, this might be true, I have to think, this might be true also for the empennage parts, like the ribs for the vertical stabilizer, rudder, whatever. If you have a big blank space after a rivet hole, that means probably that's going to be match drilled to the skin. Don't apply the fluting pliers there. All right, moving on.
So tweaking the rib prep continues, deburring all of the interior holes, just kind of double checking it, to be honest, and then have to get into the same operation with all of the stiffeners. There's me telling you all about that stuff and then texting somebody about nothing, I'm sure. The tedium of prep never ends. That's just how it goes. Today my hands are just sore from all of the detailed Scotch-Brite action. But the whole purpose of doing this is to make sure that you can get a good seal, that the sealant will have a good purchase on the materials and be able to seal up solid. So it's worth it to put extra effort into all of this portion of the prep, because I don't want no leaks. Once we get the stiffeners done, this really is uninteresting, tedious work, and it goes on and on and on. I finished about 11:15 last night. Granted, I took a long break in the middle of the day to go catch up on some yard work. So, yep, getting into the skins again. Deburring, took the opportunity to do a little bit more edge finishing on the ends since I'm here. What I'm deburring there are the big screw holes, and later, I guess we'll talk about it now because this all moves pretty quickly. I'm scuffing all of the places where there's going to be surfaces mating and sealant needs to adhere. And then once all of this is done, then busting out the naphtha and putting on the respirator, MEK substitute. From what I understand, it's not that noxious, probably not any worse than acetone, but it smells so bad to me that just a whiff of it, I'm like, I'm getting cancer. So Yeah, cleaning it all really well. It'll get cleaned again. The point here is just to get all of that residue from the Scotch-Brite and the scuffing off of there. So you see me cleaning some of the surfaces just because I want to get most of the markings off. I'm not getting all of the markings off because I need to get these things back into their proper places. So I'm really focused on the mating surfaces, getting those cleaned. And now I'm getting into dimpling. Wow, it goes way faster watching it here than it did when I was doing it. So all of those things need to be dimpled. And then we get into the dimpling of the skins. And this is what I wanted to note with the skins. You will see me, you won't be able to tell what I'm doing, but in addition to all of these rivet holes, I dimple the screw holes because the plans say that they come out much better if you dimple them with that rather than the squeezer, and there won't be an opportunity to get that big device to dimple those once the tanks are assembled. So all all dimpled, all cleaned, all done and ready for the slap. So we'll get into that today.